But the obvious one is the young boy who's rebellious, and he says, Father, and the scholars will tell you that this was very disrespectful for him to do that, but you don't need to know that. It turns out to be pretty disrespectful. Father, give me all of my inheritance, and so the father divides up. That means that right there, the father takes all that he has, and part of it goes to this youngest son, and the rest of it is reserved for who? The other son. But the other son remains there because he's going to honor the father till the day of his death, because he knows that it's not really right that he should be inheriting any of this until the day of his father's passing. But so it says, after he had spent all of his money, a great famine arose in the country where he was at. And so when it arose, it says that he went and he got a job. You know, sometimes that's what you got to do. You got to get up and you go get a job. And getting a job normally is right after the point to which you're hungry. And it says that he was starting to live and be what? Impoverished. All right, there's nothing like an empty belly to suddenly make you go job hunting. All right? And so what happens is a great famine has arisen. Now I want to show you guys a couple of instances in the Old Testament where I was talking about earlier. God sometimes uses natural disaster. Not all the time, but he uses natural disaster for his own purposes in a means by which he can move and push people who will not be moved and pushed any other way. And so what happens back in the Old Testament when the 11 brothers had thrown their own brother Joseph into the well, and they sold him to an Egyptian, and that went on, and he went on to go through horrible stuff. He was thrown into prison with Potiphar's wife's situation and all this different stuff, until finally he is risen all the way to the ranks where nobody in the greatest empire in the world was above him but Pharaoh. And then he's a dreamer, and he sees that there's going to be a great famine coming, and so he warns Pharaoh that they've got to start stockpiling the grain. And so he is the great savior of a totally foreign country. And so what happens is that the famine hits, and the brothers over there with their father Jacob, who believes his son is dead. They told him that his son was killed. And they are starting to starve, and they know that there's only one place in all of the area around them that is surviving, and that's Egypt. And so they go there, and he reveals himself to his brothers. But I want you to see all this. And there comes to the point where finally he reveals the boys have to travel back to the father, and they have to confront their father in the sin that they sinned against him. And they said, Joseph is alive. And he remembers that they told him that he was dead years ago. And so there's some similarities with the famine. The idea of a son appears to be dead, and then they're reunited. But the difference is it's all reversed. Back in that story, the one who was sent away was the good son, supposedly, and the ones that remained were the ones who were actually the prodigals. And it's strange. So the story would have rang in the ears of the Jews when they heard the stories of two brothers and one going to another country and a great famine, and a father's going to find out that a boy's dead and then he's alive and all these different things. But so it goes ahead and it says this. It says that he went to hire himself out to another citizen, and the citizen put him to work feeding the pigs or the swine. And it says that he would have gladly filled his stomach with the pods and the husk which the swine were eating. And pay attention to this verse. Nobody was giving him nothing. It points that out there. I believe the idea there is that he's not even really supposed to pilfer from the pig food. They're expecting him to do a job, but he is lusting even after that which would be totally filthy. And he had already wasted all of his money, and we know that it was from loose living, and the brother later will identify specifically what he did. He spent it all on prostitutes. And so this guy now is not living the good life. Now, I just want to stop here and tell y'all this is what this story is really trying to say. We, in life, particularly those of us who have grown up in the church, sometimes we go on a journey, maybe when we're 17 or 20 or 19, and we take what we believe we have learned and we take what we believe we know, And we go on this journey. And the journey is not for something good. The journey is because now we want to experience life with the hand of guidance and authority torn off of us. And that's why, and I want to say this to the parents, you've got to prepare in the mind of a child, through the Word of God, a type of authority that is present when you're not there. You know, the other day I was training Gabriel to be the great basketball player, and he's going to make me rich. And the problem in the game was every time I'd shout something like, rebound, rebound, he would stop in the middle of the game and turn and look at me like, what? And then the game would start going on around him. You remember that, Gabriel? And so when we came home, this is what I did. I said, I'm going to holler rebound, and don't you dare look at me. I said, when I holler rebound, what are you going to do? And he goes, I'm not going to look at you. I said, good. What are you going to do while you're not looking at me? And he goes, I'm going to rebound. I go, yes. And so I said, for the rest of your life, Daddy's going to be screaming on the sidelines. You cannot stop to look at me, to try to learn from me at that moment. I said, we learn right now. And then once you're in the game, you are free. And the only guidance I'm giving you is the voice in your head that's guiding you. And one day, Daddy won't even be there screaming rebound. You will hear my voice inside of your head screaming rebound when the ball goes up. And I will just stand there doing this because I know that you're already hearing me because you know the voice of your Father. And one day, I won't be there at all. And you'll still hear the voice of your Father saying, pass the ball, rebound, lay up, slam dunk. You'll hear it all with me not even being there. And then I told him that's the way it is with God. At some point, you've got to be prepared to walk with the voice of God. But as children get older, they start looking so forward to throwing off the shackles of authority from them. And all of a sudden, around 18, you find out what they're really made of. And the truth is, this story applies to almost all of us. I don't know about you, but around 18, I went on a journey to a faraway land. And I had the shackles of authority and the hand of governance thrown off of me. And I was autonomous, and I was going to govern myself now, the way it always should have been from the time I was born. And I was under the boot heel of all of these fools who are trying to tell me to do this and to do that. And now I could show them all how it's done. And it fails. Why? Because the whole purpose of having a father, and in this sense, God is the image of the Father here. The whole point is so that when all of the chains or whatever, all of the rules and everything are totally stripped from you, that there is a governance inside of your own spirit. And for this boy, he wanted nothing to do with the governance of his good father over him. And so, it says that he comes to his senses. You know, people talk about that come to Jesus moment. Well, this is that come to Jesus moment. There's a point to where you look around yourself. Some people wake up in the middle of a house having had a night of debauchery the night before. I remember the rock star Lenny Kravitz wrote a whole album that had all this stuff about God and Jesus all in it. And he told a reporter that his original idea, he said the entire album came to him in one night. And he said, and it was while he was living some really evil stuff. And he said he had a vision in his head that this album would be about a Solomon-type character, but it would be transported into the world of being a rock star. And it would be a guy who's the most famous and the most desired man there is. And after a night of total debauchery, he realizes that he's empty. And he realizes this is nothing. Vanity, vanity, all is vanity. You've got to reach that point where you are tired of your sin and you finally realize that it is a chain around your throat and you can't get away. And it's pulling you down into the grave. And you need to finally feel the chains of that pulling on you. I remember a guy telling me, and I may have mentioned this to y'all, that he had a very depressing life. He was abused as a child and stuff like that. He said, and the magnitude of how oxycodone hit him the first time he took it, because he said for the first time in his life he felt happy. Just a moment of happiness induced by a drug. And I was saying to my wife last night, if someone already has a happy life and they take some hydrocodone, it doesn't affect them as strongly. Why? Because they're already used to happiness. It's not shaking them up and they're not going, whoa, I will never be happy again unless I take some more hydrocodone. But when your life has been miserable and you've been down in the pits and you've never even known a good father, and then just this little pill suddenly made you feel fantastic for a moment, and you go, I've never felt good ever. And it lifted in your mind all of the worries and the oppression and the dark thoughts from your past. That is a formula for addiction. This life is full of misery, and sin comes to you and says, I'm going to lift that misery for a moment. And that is a trick. It's driving you deeper onto the plantation. And you're going to be a slave serving that master for a long time. And then one day it says in the scriptures, you'll wake up and it has absorbed the strength of your youth. And you'll look back and say, what a fool I have been. And you'll say with Solomon yourself, vanity of vanities, all is vanity. I have wasted my years. So this boy comes to himself and it says, I will do this. I will go to my father and I'll say, Father, I have sinned against heaven and in your sight, and I want to be just as one of the hired men. Because this is what entered his head. He said to himself this, he said, how many of my father's hired men have more than enough bread to eat, and I am here starving to death? See, in the house of righteousness, in the atmosphere where righteousness reigns and goodness reigns, and we think it's oppressive, we think it's puritanical and things like this. And it's suppressing my sexuality. And it's suppressing things of joy. It's all about killjoy. But in the house, when there's goodness and righteousness and there's stability, even the lowest in situations like that fare better in their heart than those who would think that they're great. And so he thinks to himself, even if I was to be the lowest scumbag on my father's entire household, I would be better than I am now. And you've got to see that the lowest in the kingdom of God would be better to be a king in the kingdom of the devil. And there are lots of kingdoms that the devil will offer you, just as he offered Jesus. But it's not worth it. Because the thing that is making you miserable, and I've said this to y'all before, there's one thing that makes you miserable: sin. And until you recognize that, you're not going to get out of it. I can't, in a sermon, make you suddenly wake up to the fact that sin is wearing you down, and it's wearing you out, and it's decaying your mind, and it's even confusing your ability to know right and wrong, male from female. You can't tell the difference between ravioli and an orange at some point because it's decaying. And is that not what our society is already doing? We are losing distinction of what is real, what is true. If you had told me when I was a kid that one day people would be saying, I don't even know if male and female is a real thing. And that to be male is to be toxic. To be male is to be a murderer, basically, in the world of society now. That the men must become like women and the women can become like men just to prove a point. And really that point that's being proven is that God, you do not define things. That's all it's really about. It's a war on this. It's a wedge against this. And at some point you've got to pull back from it and say, I would rather be in the house of the Father than to be the greatest thing outside of it. And so he gets up and he goes to his father. And please pay attention to this. He goes to his father. But while he was a long ways off, it says that the father saw him. And he ran. And he embraced him. And he kissed him. The point is this. What is the true nature of the Father is revealed right here. Does the Son deserve him to run to him? Does the Son deserve him to embrace him? Does the Son deserve him to kiss him? It's not about deserves. Matter of fact, I think that's from a Clint Eastwood movie. Deserves got nothing to do with it. I think that was from The Unforgiven, something like that. It's quite true. Deserve has nothing to do with it. It's the nature of God. But you need to know that, because it's very hard to get up and go back to your father. And the reason he could go back to his father is because he did know the nature of his father. And you need to know that when you even make the slightest turn of repentance to get up from the pig's trough that you've been in, that you in your head thought would be so glamorous, when you even get up from that and just the direction and just barely even making the turn, the whole rest of the way, the distance is not made up by you. The distance is closed by God. And he comes because he wants you. Do you know that God wants you? This is a bad son. I can tell you from my own experience, I've done some bad things. There are a lot of people who don't want Kelly Greene. There's a lot of people who may not want you. But there's one person I always know that when I get up from the pig trough, there's one person I can go to. From the time I was a little boy, I could turn to him. And you can turn to God. And he'll embrace you and he'll make up the distance, because you don't even know sometimes how to get back home. And that's what this sermon is all about, and that's what Billy Graham was all about, was telling people that you can come back home. But in the meantime, you've got to wake up to a certain fact. And this is what he says next. He says, bring out the best robe and put it on him and put a ring on his hand. And he says, I want sandals on his feet. He starts clothing him. He doesn't even let him say the rest of it. To say the rest of it would be this: oh, Father, please let me be one of your hired servants. The Father stops him before he even completes anything and just says, that's right, yes, you have sinned against heaven. That's all I needed to hear. I needed to hear you say that you have sinned against heaven. I need to hear you confess. I need to know that you are on the right track. And then I embrace you. And then all this, the trappings of being a son, are suddenly thrown upon you with the robe and the ring. And all that comes back from the story of Joseph. The image of the Pharaoh putting the signet ring onto Joseph and making him into something great inside of the kingdom. And then it goes ahead and it says this. He says, I want you to bring the fatted calf and kill it and eat and let's celebrate. That's the attitude that God has for you. And so it says that they did celebrate, and then it turns and it says that the other brother was in the fields. And he came, and when he came at a distance, he heard music. I didn't say that. And dancing. As a good Baptist, maybe I'll translate this for you. Dancing means toe tapping, not dancing. No, I'm joking. It's dancing. It's dancing. David danced before the Lord, right? Come on, people. Dance. There, and I don't mean fake dancing, I mean whenever someone has repented and come to the Lord, if that cannot stir up something inside of you, something in you is broken. And so what happens is he comes and the whole household of the Father, and I bet there hasn't been music and dancing in that household for a long time. You ever feel like there won't ever be joy in your house again? Relationships have been shattered too completely? No, they can be restored. You think they can't, but if God can raise a dead man from the dead, he can restore that. And it says that he inquires of the servant and says, what do these things mean? And the servant says, well, your brother has returned and your father has killed the fatted calf because he's received him back safe and sound. But it says he became angry. This is the other prodigal son. It says that he became angry. Do you know sometimes we think we're so much better than all those worthless, filthy sinners out there? Thank you, Father, that I'm not like other men. All those guys who vote Democrat. And we think we're better. And you're lost. You're lost because the very attitude itself is to be lost. Because you can be lost and be in the very house of the Father. It says that he was sitting there. In the context of being the good boy, he was the one who was angry. And you know who he was angry with? Not his brother. He was angry with his father. He hated his brother, but he was angry with his father. And his father came out and he pleaded with him. You notice the father keeps coming to the people when they don't deserve it. And he says, look, I have served you all these years, and I've never neglected one of your commandments. Sound familiar? Good church folk. I've been good. I would never do that. Blah, 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 blah. And he says, but you've never given me squat. You've never given me a goat, a scrawny goat to celebrate with my friends. The entitlement mentality. On one level, God has given you everything, and on the other level, you're angry that He hasn't given you what you really want at the moment. He says, I've been good. He's thinking in terms of what? Deserve. I'm the good boy. He said, and then this son comes here, this son of yours, who has wasted your wealth on prostitutes, and you killed the fatted calf. I don't know about you, but I'd probably be angry too. You know what? I've been angry in my family because there's a golden child in our family, and it's not me. I'm a preacher. I'm a preacher. I'm the good boy. Why does the golden get the attention? But the problem is with me when I think like that. You know why? Because I should thank God that by His grace I was even allowed to stand up here today and preach the Word of God to you. God can raise up an ant to get up here and preach a sermon to you in honor of Billy Graham. He could bring Billy Graham right back down right now to preach a sermon in honor of Billy Graham right now. We think too highly of ourselves. And so he says, look, son, this is right. You need to understand that it was right that we celebrate your brother. Here's the problem. He hates his brother. He hates his brother. Sometimes it's not about how many commands you have kept. It doesn't matter how shiny your shoes were when you came to church today. Did you part your hair on the right side? Where was your heart today when you came in here? And then the father explains to him, you've got to understand, we are celebrating this because your brother was lost. Matter of fact, some people have used this passage to argue that once saved, always saved. That's a different argument. That's not part of this passage. It clearly says right there, he was dead. Dead in trespasses and sins. He was dead the moment he left the Father. Regardless of your theology, he was dead. It says, but now he has begun to live. He repented and he has returned. And for some reason, this makes you angry. He says, he was lost, but now he's found. This is how it is. I just want to close this with you guys here. Today, all Billy Graham would have said to you was this, that all of us are the prodigal son, and that you can come to God at any time. But until you see the need for your repentance, you will never do it. Let's all stand and go to the Lord in prayer.